All right, good morning or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I think it's probably good evening for you folks in the United States. My name is Dr. Andrew Torris. I'm the host of this event this evening, this morning for us here in the Middle East. My two guests, Miss Kelly Mejia and Mr. Savvas uh, Lagatet. How do you say your last name, Savvas? I always have trouble with that one.
Largatzis.
So Mr. Savvas, as I refer to him, is here this good day to chat with you a little bit about the development of our careers as we move through this journey we call professional education. Um, I've been working in education for more than 30 years in various and sundry ways. It started as a classroom teacher in my home state of Oregon, and did that for nearly a decade before I started getting the opportunities for professional growth and advancement that was the result of my continuing education. It was that key of a master's degree that really pushed me forward to into the next level. Kelly, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kelly Mejia. I have been teaching for the last 14 years. I also started in my home state of Georgia and then went on an international trajectory, which was also enhanced by my master's degree. And I was able to live in different places of the world and pursue different facets of leadership through my master's degree.
Fantastic. Savas?
My name's Savvas Largatzis. I've been teaching for almost a decade now. I completed my master's, and I've had experiences teaching in Vietnam, Qatar, and now in the UAE as a grade 6 science teacher. So yeah, that's me.
And your home country is South
Oh,
Africa,
sorry,
correct?
South Africa. South Africa, yeah.
Yes. All right, terrific. Well, today we're going to be focusing a little bit on, some key assets and attributes that we're looking for in great educators, and I think there's some skill sets here that are built into that. And I guess to kick us off and get us going here, can you both just describe ways in which your master's degrees have enabled you to be prepared to work in the international education setting, and how it helped to develop your teaching style and meet the needs of this diverse group of students that you see in front of you. Kelly, why don't you start?
So for me, my master's degree was actually the first mention of the significance of like local global issues and connections. It was the first time that that sort of perspective was kind of introduced to me, and it really broadened my perspective and made me want to learn about these concepts in very different ways. I found it much more engaging. And if I myself found it much more engaging as an educator, I knew that my students would also find that local global connection to be really important and impactful with regards to their study.
Thomas?
For me, yeah, sorry. Having a master's degree, I think, has really pushed me to think beyond just delivering content, but also about making learning applicable to my students' lives. One key takeaway that I can remember from my master's was how to structure curricula that connect big global concepts with local issues. For example, in science, I teach about climate change using different case studies from different parts of the world. But also I like to link it to local environmental challenges, such as water conservation or air quality. And that way my students can see how these issues affect them personally. I think coming from that science background, I always focused on inquiry and problem solving, but my master's really helped me to refine that approach by incorporating global case studies and local environmental issues. And I think that makes my lessons a little bit more relatable and meaningful for my students.
Fantastic. Kelly, as you've progressed through your master's degree in international ed, how did it help you to develop an understanding of teaching strategies and techniques? And and in your current role, you're helping teachers be better teachers. You're an instructional coach, as I understand it. But and I know that carries forward from your own practice. You were an IB history teacher at one point, and did a sort of move through the classroom experience in different ways. So, can you draw back on those lessons from your master's degree to help us to understand how it helped you be a better teacher?
Absolutely. My degree really helped me develop, I would say, innovative teaching practices in a very practical way. My undergraduate really prepared me as far as pedagogy and theory, but I feel like my master's actually equipped me with tactical and tangible things that I could really take and move forward, like teaching from diverse backgrounds, looking at things by preparing me with that international mindset and that approach in mind. Excuse me. It also taught me to adjust my teaching based on how students are responding to the learning. That was something that was really impactful for me because I was focusing my assessments on informing my practice, and that wasn't something that I was doing prior to my master's degree.
And so that training you had, of what I hear you saying, is helping you build that adaptability piece that is so important. And I mean, coming back to this international experience, ultimately that adaptability piece, as I understand, is pretty important. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think it's paramount because you're dealing with students from such diverse and different backgrounds, especially from yourself. And so understanding and really like living and breathing that international mindset was something that my program really focused on and emphasized.
Yeah. And I guess that's that diverse perspective piece that's so important. Kind of trying to take a step back and keep an eye on not only the needs of your organization, but the needs of the school, and that higher level understanding provided it from a master's degree process certainly does that. And I remember this sort of these enlightening moments as I moved through my degree. And started thinking about things. So, I mean, Savvas, I think diverse perspectives are important. You gave some examples of some of the great work that you're doing with your students in your classroom, and talk to me a little bit more about that. How do you provide those perspectives for your students, and how did your master's degree help you to sort of delve deeper into those understandings and bring those forward in your work?
Yeah, well, I think a big part of my own teaching philosophy, which is something that I really learned during my own master's, was to connect concepts to my students' own experiences, making sure students see themselves in the learning process. I try to use a mix of different case studies, project-based learning, and hands-on experiences to really cater for those different learning styles. For instance, when teaching about ecosystems or sustainability, I try to bring in different examples from different countries and climates, such as how deforestation affects the Amazon, maybe versus how it affects parts of Southeast Asia. And that way, students, I think, see it as something that is more global and interconnected, not just textbook knowledge. Culturally, I've also learned that classroom participation varies. Some students are obviously more vocal. Alternatively, others prefer maybe more structured discussions. So I try to make sure to offer multiple ways to engage, whether it's verbal discussions or visual projects or some sort of reflection piece. And I think that my program really helped me to learn to adapt to different types of learning styles and my students' needs.
Very good. One of the key outcomes of the programs here are focused on the development of leadership skills as part of I guess the course content, and part of that comes from, and I think all three of us will admit that leadership training in educational setting is sort of inherent with knowledge, content knowledge, the ability to sort of assess different perspectives ongoing in front of you, using the knowledge of your coursework, but also of the students to sort of apply forward and think forward to the next steps. It's a bit of a for lack of a better analogy here, it's kind of a chess match, thinking 3 steps ahead, 4 steps ahead as you move through it. I'll start with you, Savvas, here. I'm just curious about sort of from your perspective, and I understand you're moving into a leadership position in your school next year. How your degree helped you to be equipped and ready to move forward with your leadership skills?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that I gained from my master's degree is that it didn't just give me knowledge. It really empowered me with leadership skills to actively implement changes and improvements in teaching rather than just following standard methods. I think it's also helped me to understand how different education systems differ globally and what best practices can be adapted to different contexts. For example, I've worked on implementing cross-disciplinary projects that combine science with math and technology and sustainability. And that's something that my master's really encouraged. Taking ownership of these projects has not only improved student learning, but I think has also sparked conversations amongst my colleagues about how we can improve our collective teaching approaches.
All right. Kelly, what do you think? What's your perspective on that?
I think that one of the things my master's really helped me focus on was the significance of goal setting and how to set attainable, realistic goals. And it really is applicable to exactly what I'm doing now because I work with teachers in individual coaching cycles. I work with departments on goal setting. And so it really has equipped me to be able to really look at setting smart, realistic goals and having teachers use student data and assessment in order to inform those goals and to see progress with those goals.
So, Kelly, if you don't mind, you can take a little step back here for a little second, because I think it's important for people to realize, as you progress your career moving forward and tapping into this expertise that you gained in your master's program, it's helped you to move through that. Can you just quickly describe sort of the career steps that you saw as the doors open to with the keys to that to those doors with your master's degree program?
Absolutely. So in my teaching career, I started teaching in South Korea. And then once I moved to China, I was teaching at an international school in Qingdao. And it was there that my principal approached me and said that he thought I would be an excellent candidate for leadership in education, but that I needed to be sure to get my master's degree in order to be considered for leadership positions. And it was really his encouragement and his belief in me as a leader and what he could see that really made me want to kind of pursue that and look into that. And once I moved to Lithuania, I then pursued my master's degree and found that it was incredibly helpful in advancing my career. I became high school principal after that. And then I was also high school vice principal. I've been IB coordinator. Now I'm curriculum coordinator and instructional coach, moving into IB coordination again next year. So it's really equipped me for a wide range of leadership opportunities in this international sphere for sure.
Yeah, and Savvas, you had this progression from South Africa to Vietnam. Tell us a little bit more about that with you and how that moved your career forward.
Yeah, so I think for me, I actually did my master's quite early into my career. And it was only really when I moved to Vietnam that I gained more of a love for teaching. And I felt that having done my master's really helped to equip me with certain skills. From there, I got positions in Qatar as a science teacher. And I kind of grew into the position. And I felt that the skills that my master's provided me with really helped to equip me and make sure that I was best approaching teaching in a way that was benefiting my students. From there, I naturally progressed into leadership roles like science coordinators, and most recently as a head of department in middle school science and computer science. And I think that these are some of the skills that my master's definitely helped to, to give me. So now I'm looking obviously forward and moving into an assistant principal role. So that's something
Wow.
that.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I always use the analogy, and will continue probably forever around this idea that and I always felt it. I think this is a lesson learned, I don't know, given to me by my father, who was an educator, or some mentor I had along the way. But the idea that these degrees that you earn give you keys for your career key ring. The only problem we have in front of us, folks, is that we don't know which doors we're going to run into along the way. Ultimately, doors open and doors close. We come to doors. Some of them are locked, some of them are unlocked. But ultimately, the more keys you have on your key ring, the more opportunities to open those doors come along. And so I've always equated these higher degrees with more keys on your key ring or more tools in your toolbox, whichever one you prefer. And I had the same experience. And I think the same holds true over a decade or decades in my case to certainly do that. And I think that continuing education is so important. I want to also have you talk to me a little bit about then the students in your classroom. Ultimately, working in international education provides a unique context to meet the needs of different kids from different parts of the world. Savvas, let's start with you and your career journey and sort of talk to us about sort of how your degree helped you to be a better teacher in like where you've been, home, Vietnam, and so on.
Well, something that I learned quite early on is that, beyond like pursuing further education fosters a mindset of lifelong learning, something that we obviously try to encourage in our students. And if we expect our students to obviously be inquisitive and adaptable, we should try to model that behavior by becoming lifelong learners ourselves. So I certainly feel that, investing in your education is also an investment in your student success. And I've learned, some of the things that I've gained from my master's and other courses that I've completed have really helped me to, implement certain teaching strategies that really benefit my students. It's helped me to find different ways to cater to different learning styles and also reach students in a way that, that they understand where the lessons or the learning is more relatable and meaningful. So that's something that I've learned along the way.
Very good. Very good. Kelly, how about you?
I think the way that my master's has really impacted my ability to connect with my students was through that, what I mentioned already, the international mindedness and that local global context. That wasn't something that was discussed at all in my undergrad education. That was something that was brand new to me once I pursued my master's degree. And so it really helped me to understand how I could make concepts much more realistic and much more appealing to my students by making those local connections and making it real world contextual for them. I remember teaching IB history in Lithuania and having to teach the Cold War to students who were of Lithuanian, Russian, Ukrainian descent. And so that was a really interesting mix of perspectives of how the Cold War really took place and impacted the various places. And so understanding that it's a sensitive topic, but also that these students could really grasp it in a way that was much more real to them because it was their lived histories of their families. And making that connection for them was just, I feel like, very empowering. Watching them go into the research, like excited to learn about the impact that their individual families had on this world event in this global scale once they looked at it very locally and then applied it to the global scale. It was really phenomenal to see.
Nice. I know, so obviously you shared with me in the past some of the and here even this morning you shared some of some of the innovative pieces that you've been doing with your students. For both of you, as you look back on your experiences over the last several years, and Kelly, with your Cold War example, Savvas, as you talked about the ways you're engaging your students in your classroom, can you give me another or a specific example of maybe some things that you're really super excited about and proud of that you've either assisted or facilitated or delivered in a classroom that was a result of maybe that great learning that you brought forward from the years ago in those master's degree programs?
I can start. I actually facilitated student-led conferences in Vilnius in Lithuania. I implemented it in the secondary. It was the first time that it had been done in the secondary school. It was a practice that they had in the elementary. And for me, it didn't make any sense why we weren't doing it in middle school and high school as well. And so I helped train teachers how to create student portfolios. Again, going back to that goal setting piece, looking at the student achievement data and basing their goals off of attainable, realistic goals. And it was the first time that you really got to watch your students take ownership of their learning. Sure, the secondary students are more likely to talk to their parents about what they're learning, but the conversations that we had them scope the questions and the answers around were how they made the learning meaningful to themselves, the connections that they made, both locally, globally, internationally. And it was just very cool to see us building up those leadership skills within the students. It was also something that I implemented at my previous school in Jeddah. So this is something that has really caught fire with the international schools that I've worked in the past. And I'm currently working with my administration on doing something similar at our secondary school here in the UAE.
Awesome.
For me, a key takeaway from my master's was understanding how to tailor educational initiatives to different cultural and academic environments. So one example that I can think of is having worked on a science project that focused on environmental sustainability, where students had to design solutions for local climate challenges. And instead of just looking at generic examples, I had my students research environmental issues specific to their own communities, such as water conservation in arid regions, urban pollution, and so on. And I think that this approach ensured that the learning was both globally informed, but also locally relevant. And through that, I think I realized that effective education is all about adapting universal principles to fit local needs. And my master's degree really helped me to see the bigger picture in that regard.
Yeah, I was reflecting back as both of you were talking here about the things that I did when I was in the classroom and working in that decade back in Oregon and working through my master's degree simultaneously. And I remember sort of feeling like my brain was supercharged with ideas because every time I'd go in, somebody'd present something to me and I'd be like, oh, this is a great idea. And Kelly, your idea of student-led conferencing and student-involved conferencing was something that we did, as a matter of fact, back in Oregon back in those days. And then I carried that idea forward then into my first international teaching experience in Yanbu, Saudi Arabia, as well, just a few miles up the road from Jeddah in that space. The other piece was it was so wonderful to interact and connect with fellow colleagues, professionals, where we could sort of move those ideas forward. And that power, that transformative power that I felt in those moments where a team came together and worked together. And I think this is one of the pieces that I think is so engaging about working in international school. The level of the colleague sort of steps up another 3 or 4 notches beyond what you would get in maybe another setting. We're coming toward the end of our conversation here, and I think this is a good point to wrap up on, and that is, how do you see you fitting in with the rest of your colleagues as part of the process? And, you know, as you look across your peer group now, how do you feel like your master's degree prepared you to be a better professional?
One of the courses that I took in my master's in international education was about negotiations. And I found this to be incredibly insightful and helpful. And it was actually a course that was led by a lawyer. He wasn't a teacher, he came from a different perspective entirely. And through this course, we learned, of course, how to negotiate and use kind of strategies that you use in the real world and how to implement those into your teaching practice and into your skill set. And it was just a way that I had never even viewed teaching and education before. And I thought it was just a very unique way to kind of approach education in general, in that like you can't really fit it. It's not like a one size fits all. You go through these steps and you need to be adaptable, you need to be transformative in your practices, you need to adjust to how your students are responding to your instruction. And it was just a very enlightening course in looking at this tactic of negotiations and how it applies to, you know, advancing your career or advancing student progress, or, you know, giving you the arguments that you need in order to advocate for specific students. Or it just really equipped me with a wide range of skill sets with regards to negotiation, whether that's person to person and building relationships, or that's advocating for my students. And I feel like it's really helped me develop those relationships and nurture those relationships to the point where now teachers trust me enough to come into their lessons and set goals with them and give them feedback. So yeah, it was very impactful for me.
Fantastic.
For me, having had conversations with colleagues that have also completed masters, I think we've all come to realize that, you know, a master's degree doesn't just make you a better teacher. It pushes you to think about education on like a broader level, on something of a more interconnected level. And I feel that it's given me the tools to refine my teaching, to make learning more relevant for my students, and to also create meaningful educational experiences. I think that can help to really bridge global perspectives with local realities. So that's something that I think that I've gained from my masters, and something that I know that a lot of my colleagues have also shared with me. So yeah.
All right. Well, very good. Well, we have a few guests here, and I don't know if anybody wants to pipe in with any questions in the chat. You know, and as we wrap up here and sort of take a moment to sort of reflect on this, I think what we're trying to do here is really provide some empowering experiences for the students at a university level, and make sure that they're seeing this set of skills and concepts and practices provided in the coursework is really founded at the core that we believe that, and I think you two are great examples of this, that education really has no boundaries. It is really an opportunity to empower the professional, to you know, move forward and seize that transformative power of knowledge that is so important to us. And essentially, it elevates our careers. It elevated all three of us in different ways to move forward and really do something remarkable. Certainly, there is the aspect of added professional respect from our peers, from our parent community, from our supervisors, our board members, but certainly also and we can't deny this, you two, there's a little bit of financial plus to it as well. So there's lots of quality, you know, sort of results of getting those master's degrees, but also I think it has allowed the three of us, and you two have provided me excellent examples here today, where you have been able to take those skills and those and that knowledge and really thrive and be successful in an environment where adaptability and resilience are at the core of what you do every day. It's complicated to work in an international school. And there's, examples over and over again, but I don't know about you two, but I find it exciting, exhilarating, challenging every day. There's never a boring moment. And I'm an easily bored person, I'm afraid to admit. I think that's the other part about it. I guess the other piece here is, and I think that we, the three of us, provide this for our colleagues, but we also expect it from our colleagues, and that is that ongoing support, that ability to continue to learn in the work setting, but also beyond, looking for constant professional development experiences for ourselves, for our colleagues, and that care and support, if you will, is pretty important along the way. And I think also the universities are doing a pretty remarkable job of continuing that work moving forward. Does any of our guests have any questions before we wrap it up here this evening? David? David, that's sort of true and sort of not true. A master's degree helps you to get the jobs in the really great schools, the schools that provide you with the kind of support and experiences that is going to move your career forward. There's a large number of international schools out here, and they are fantastic at really pitching themselves in different ways. But it's those high-profile schools. When we're out hiring for teachers, the ones with the master's degrees certainly have a leg up and are going to find the great jobs along the way. So great question. Anybody else?
If I could just add to that, I think, you're really trying to stand out. It's obviously very competitive, competing with other job applicants. So having a master's definitely helps you to stand out. But I don't think it's necessary to land a teaching position in an international school. It certainly helps you to really make progressions forward. But yeah, I think that's just important to note.
Anybody else out there? All right. Well, Kelly, Savvas, thank you so much for getting up bright and early this morning, and connecting with our guests this our morning, their afternoon, evening in the United States. We will maybe connect at another one here and have another chat on another topic. I really appreciate your time and your expertise that you provided us. It was truly a gift. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.